I'm going to be talking about Amazon CodeGuru, which was announced like a couple of weeks back at reInvent. I'm Srinivasan Sengamedu. I'm a senior ML manager with Amazon Web Services. So Amazon CodeGuru is basically an ML service which helps developers improve code quality, improve application performance, and reduce fleet costs. So what I want to tell you today is about some of the details of Amazon CodeGuru, how you can onboard on Amazon CodeGuru, the type of recommendation it gives, and so that you can get started with your journey in code quality improvement and performance optimization. So before we get started, let's look at Lynn. Lynn is a Java tech lead who is working on core backend services like search, ordering, and shipping of a high volume e-commerce site, and she is part of a distributed development team. And Lynn is supposed to represent several of us in this room. I'll talk about a couple of interactions Lynn has with her team members, and it will tell us what are the kind of issues she's having. In the first one, a developer comes to her and says, we found a data corruption issue in production, and Lynn says, okay, let's go and find out what's going on with this. And after 4 hours, the developer comes and says, I think it's due to a data race. So if you find a data corruption issue in production, obviously you encourage the developer to fix it. At the same time, Lynn cannot help thinking to herself, why did we miss it in our code reviews? Lynn is doing all the right things. We'll see what are the things she is doing, and why do we miss it, and how can she really wishes that there is an expert on concurrency in her team so that these kind of issues either don't occur, or when they occur, they are resolved sooner. And in the second interaction, the on-call comes running and says the site latency is increasing. I just got paged, and again, this is a serious issue. So Lynn says, okay, go figure out what's going on. And after an hour, the on-call comes and says the CPUs are overloaded, and I think we have to increase our fleet sizes. And Lynn says, wait a minute, we just increased the fleet sizes a month back, and the traffic hasn't really increased. So what's really going on? And here, the on-call doesn't really have an answer. So obviously, while Lynn says, okay, go, let's increase the fleet sizes, she really, she wants to know, does anybody really know what's going on, right? And she also says, oh, ours is a small team, and I wish there is someone who is an expert on performance on our team. Okay, and I guess several of us here can relate to what's going on here. These such incidents or similar incidents have happened some point in time or other, right? And the thing is, this is what Lynn is left with. The first question is, how can I improve the code quality, and are we giving the lowest latency to our customers, or our infrastructure costs just bloating? And more importantly, what is it out there that we haven't discovered yet? This is really scary. And as I said, if you look at what's Lynn actually doing in a daily life, she's doing all the right things, all the known things, all the familiar things. She and her team, they write code, they review code, they follow the code review process, they build and test the code, and after that, they do the deployment. And once the code is deployed, there is the monitoring and measurement that's going on, and they knew that, okay, the site latency was increasing. That comes out of monitoring, and based on what they see, they improve the process, and it kind of goes back to writing code, writing better code, right? So if you look at the processes, there are things like code reviews, the CI/CD pipelines, metrics like latency, dashboards, alerts, and so on. So this is the world Lynn is living in, and now let's see what's missing in this picture, right? What's missing is, the first one is detection of code defects before they make it to production. This is very important. Anything that has an impact in production has a lot of other repercussions. So you want to detect the issues early on. And the second one is keeping up with the best practices. So if you look at the kind of areas software touches upon these days, they're just increasing, and it's difficult for teams, especially small teams, to be up to date with several of these emerging practices. So that's one of the things that's missing. And the other one is identifying performance bottlenecks and linking them to code. So if you look at a typical running application, it has thousands of methods, and let's say you want to increase the utilization or reduce the latency. Where do you start? So that's what is missing. And the other one is tools for visualizing the performance. Typically, large running applications are black boxes. It's really difficult to know what's going on and what are the issues, current and potential. So that's the other thing. And availability of expertise. Talent is scarce, all of us know, and expertise is even scarcer. So it's difficult to get the expertise when you want it. The other one is faster time to resolution and remediation. It takes time to identify issues. It takes time to solve the problems and get them deployed and so on. So time is also important to identify and resolve the issues. So in a nutshell, basically what developers need is a truly integrated tool that works across the multiple phases of the software development lifecycle, and a tool that provides actionable recommendations on the different phases of the lifecycle. So this is this is what Lynn is missing, and I'm sure several of us have felt the need for some such thing some point in time or other, right? And what's really missing in this ecosystem is what we call the Amazon CodeGuru. So Amazon CodeGuru is built to address several of these problems. I'm going to talk about some of them now. So now that we have seen why we built Amazon CodeGuru, I'm going to talk about some more aspects of Amazon CodeGuru. And Amazon CodeGuru has two parts. One is the CodeGuru reviewer, and the other one is the CodeGuru profiler. So I'm going to talk about the details of the types of recommendation they provide, and how you can onboard, and how you can use them, how you can give feedback, and so on. And I'll be giving demos of both the reviewer and the profiler. So that's roughly what lies ahead. So let's jump in and see what is Amazon CodeGuru. As I mentioned, it's an ML service for automated code review and application performance profiling. It's based on decades of knowledge and experience at Amazon. So Amazon has a lot of experience in writing code, coming up, following best practices, deploying systems, optimizing for performance, and so on. So it leverages decades of experience and knowledge at Amazon. And the other one is it evolves with user feedback. When you use the Amazon CodeGuru reviewer or the profiler, you get recommendations on whichever aspect it is about, and you can give feedback on the recommendation, whether it has been useful or not useful, and so on. So once you give feedback, it evolves with the feedback, and it searches for optimization continuously, even in production. So especially the Amazon CodeGuru profiler, it has a low overhead, so that you don't have to hesitate before deploying to production, in production, and seeing what's going on with your application running in production. And it provides actionable recommendations to fix the identified issues, so that you not only know what the problem is, you also know how to address it. And the CodeGuru reviewer basically inspects code for how to find defects, and the profiler helps you find the most promising methods for optimization in your running application. So if you want to optimize, reduce the latency or reduce cost or increase the utilization, you can use the profiler. And basically, it's like having a distinguished engineer on call on your team 24/7. So we talked about availability of expertise in your teams. So this is like just having someone who is versed with coding best practices on multiple topics I'm going to talk about, and also performance optimizations. So that's what you get, and let's see how this fits into the ecosystem or the practices we follow. So this is the cycle we saw earlier about multiple phases of writing code, building, deploying, and so on. And CodeGuru reviewer fits into the early part of the cycle. You get code reviews with actionable recommendations when you, as a part of your standard code review process. And the profiler can be used in pre-prod to detect and optimize for expensive lines of code. So before some of these inefficiencies creep into production, you can detect them and optimize them. And it's actually very interesting to know that you can actually use the CodeGuru profiler even in production. It has very low overhead, and you don't have to hesitate before using it in production. And it helps you identify performance and cost improvements in the production environment. So you can use it both in pre-prod and in the production environment. So that's at a high level what the CodeGuru is about, and I'm going to talk about the CodeGuru reviewer. And as I mentioned earlier, it provides automated code review comments, and it supports Java applications. So if you have code written in Java, you can link, or you can onboard to CodeGuru reviewer, and it will give you code review comments. And it is integrated with GitHub and AWS code commit source control repositories. So if your code is on GitHub or AWS code commit, you can start using CodeGuru reviewer. And it leverages what's called the pull request based code review workflow. I want to talk briefly about what this is for people who are not familiar. Pull request based code review is in some sense, it's very popular with developers for performing code reviews. So the integration with your code review process is essentially seamless. So let's see what the pull request based code review process is. So let's say that a developer is working on a bug fix or a feature enhancement. So what they do is they create a local branch, and they make all the code changes in the local branch. And once they are happy with the changes, once they have unit tested, they create what's called a pull request. So it's basically a notification for the reviewers to that this code is ready for review, and they can clone it and take a look at it and give comments. And a code review process is basically an interactive process. The reviewers provide comments, and the developer either responds to the comments or makes changes. And once the changes are approved, it is merged back into the main line. So this is the pull request based code review process. And some of the key challenges with this process are, the first one is the availability of expertise in teams. Software has so many aspects like availability, compliance, correctness, and so on. And these aspects are often not addressed or not fully addressed in code reviews, mainly because of the lack of time and expertise. So this is, and as we saw earlier, these things can actually have production impact. And the other one is senior talent. Code reviews often demand senior talent, and the senior engineers may be not available for code reviews. They may be working on other tasks, or if they get involved in code reviews, they may not be able to do other tasks. So there is always this tension. And the other one is multiple functional areas. Software typically touches upon several areas like concurrency, handling of resources, handling of AWS services, and so on. And teams may not have experts in several of these areas. And this is something which I'm not sure how many people appreciate. Human code reviews often focus on business logic, and less on some of the functional correctness issues, and you end up with these functional dead, hotspots or dead areas, and they manifest later in production. And finally, what happens is the number and sizes of the source code repos are increasing. So this basically means that to review a code, even by the human, they need to look at larger and larger contexts, and again, this takes time, right? So these are some of the challenges with the code review process, and let's see how Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer plugs in and what, how it helps. The Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer flags critical defects and reliability issues in code. We'll see what are these areas very shortly. And the second one is, this is the pull request based workflow we saw earlier, and the CodeGuru Reviewer is essentially, after onboarding, it becomes another reviewer in your workflow. So the experience is pretty seamless. There is nothing new to learn. It's part of your normal code review experience. And the other important thing to note is the CodeGuru Reviewer augments the human code review process, and it is not a replacement. So you cannot say, okay, after onboarding to Amazon Code Review, I'm going to get rid of my human code review process. As we saw earlier, these are somewhat complementary, and what you get is you get additional insights on your code. So now that we have seen how it plugs in, let's look at the code areas addressed by the CodeGuru Reviewer. The first one is AWS best practices. So all of us, several of us here use AWS, and AWS has hundreds of services, and these services have several, tens to hundreds of APIs, and these APIs have certain nuances which the developers may not always be aware. And not knowing these features or nuances may lead to either correctness issues or performance issues. So for example, there are things like waiters and pagination and so on with AWS APIs, which developers may not be familiar with. So I'm going to give you examples of some of this later. And not using them, you may have either a performance hit, or you may get into correctness issues, especially when the data sizes increase. So CodeGuru Reviewer provides recommendations on the correct use of AWS APIs. And the second one is concurrency. So concurrency is a topic is tricky even for expert developers. So they need to look at, take a second or third look at concurrency code. And here again, not implementing concurrency correctly may either lead to correctness issues. You may end up with stale data or incorrect data, or if you overdo concurrency, you may actually end up in performance issues. So what CodeGuru Reviewer provides is it provides comments on the right use of concurrency. And the third one is resource leaks. So resources are basically things like database connections and sockets and files and so on. And if you're not handling the resources properly, then your resources may accumulate, and you may end up with either slowdown or some kind of availability issues. And it's important to note that if you're doing unit tests often do not reveal either concurrency issues or resource leaks, because it needs certain level of accumulation for them to show up, right? So, and here again, you can have either a slowdown or impacts on availability. And the fourth one is sensitive information leak. Sensitive information is basically things like usernames, credit cards, and emails, and so on. And again, this is an emerging area, and not handling sensitive information properly may actually lead to compliance issues in addition to several of the other issues, right? So this is an area where CodeGuru Reviewer provides suggestions. And finally, there is a class of issues. These are, they belong to multiple categories. They're not just a single category, and these have been identified through more like, analysis of large code bases and the kind of defects that happen in these code bases. and these cover multiple categories and including the AWS best practices. So these are the code areas that are addressed by CodeGuru Reviewer. And now let's see how you can actually onboard to CodeGuru Reviewer. So this is, you have a code repository. It can be either GitHub or AWS code commit. And the first step to do is to associate your repository with CodeGuru Reviewer. And this is a one-time operation, and this is done by the repo admin. So once that is done, CodeGuru Reviewer is part of your pull request workflows. So after association, so any pull request created by a developer on these repositories, the CodeGuru gets notified by the repository, and CodeGuru clones the repository, analyzes the code, and provide feedback as a pull request workflow. And the developers, as I mentioned, can look at the comments and provide feedback about whether the comments are useful or not. And this feedback actually helps improve the CodeGuru Reviewer. So this is how CodeGuru Reviewer plugs into your workflow. And how does it work? A little bit of how it works under the hood. So let's say this is a pull request. There's a snippet of code a developer has changed. And so what we do is we create a representation of the code which captures the syntactic patterns in the code. It captures both the data flow and the control flow aspects in the code. And this representation is fed to machine learning models. And as I mentioned, these are trained on both the AWS, in Amazon code base, as well as top 10,000 repositories on GitHub. And once the model output is given as recommendation as part of the code review workflow. So if you look at this code, what happens is there is a resource leak that's happening in this code, and that's what the developer gets. Okay, and the developer can give feedback on this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is give a demo of Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer. So let's okay, let me see. Okay, so this is the console of Amazon CodeGuru, and you can see both the reviewer and the profiler. So I will look at the reviewer. To get started with the reviewer, the first step is to associate your repos on either GitHub or code commit with CodeGuru. So you do the associate repository, and so in this case, let's say my repository is on GitHub, so I say connect to GitHub, and you get this pop-up, and you have to provide your credentials. And since I've already given the credentials, it says connected. So now the repos on GitHub are visible under this account, are visible to CodeGuru Reviewer. So, and I want to pick this shipping app, and I'll say associate. So what happens is you get the status of association. So there's already one repo which is associated, and this repo is now getting associated. It takes a few seconds for a repo to get associated. So while the association is going on, I will go to GitHub and show you how this looks. So this is the repo we associated, the shipping app. So it has a Java file. I'll tell you a little bit about what this repo does so that you can understand the code review, the comments given by the CodeGuru reviewer, right? So what this does is it basically aggregates the shipping status of multiple packages. So the package status are transmitted by mobile apps or handheld scanners, and these are stored in files. So this is the raw status. The file name has the tracking ID as well as a random number, and the file contents have the status, which can be in transit or delivered and so on, and also a timestamp associated with that status. So there are thousands of these objects on S3, and what this does is it consolidates the status. There can be multiple status for a single package, and it consolidates and provides the latest status. So and it uses multi-threaded operations for this. So that is what this package is about. So let's go back to CodeGuru reviewer and see if the association was done. And yeah, so now this is associated. So once the association happens, all the action is on GitHub. So the developers don't have to worry about this console. So let's go to GitHub, and on this app, I have a version, and I will create a pull request. So once I create a pull request, what happens is the CodeGuru reviewer gets notified. It clones the code, start analyzing the code. It takes about 10 minutes for a typical package to get comments on. So instead of waiting for 10 minutes, what I'll do is I'll show you the comments on an earlier version of the repo. So as you can see, this happens on GitHub. So this is the code. Okay. So let's see what are the types of comments here. So yeah, this is the first comment, and so it says that the recommendation is generated by the Amazon CodeGuru reviewer. So what this says is the code appears to be waiting for a resource before it runs, and you could use waiters feature to help improve the efficiency. So what's going on here is there is a loop in which the code is testing whether an object exists or not. So this is some kind of a busy wait operation, and the recommendation here is you can use waiters, which is a feature provided by the AWS APIs, along with object exists and object not exists to improve the performance of what you're doing. And there is also a pointer to more information. So this is an example where the performance of the application improves. So that's the first comment. So let's look at the other comments. This is the second comment. What it says is this code might not produce accurate results if the operation returns paginated results. So it is about this list objects API. So when you say list objects, people expect typically it returns all the objects in as a single list, but people are not familiar that it's actually returns pages after pages. So what this code is doing is actually looking at the first page and moving ahead instead of waiting for all the results or aggregating all the results. So the application is actually using only a partial set of results, which is actually incorrect. And this may not be a problem early in the application because there may not be sufficient data and one page may be just sufficient. But as the data sizes increase, this can actually result in partial set of results. So this is the other example. And if you look at the third recommendation, this says you're using an outdated API and use list objects v2 to do this listing operation, right? And let's go down further and see what happens. So this is another comment. This is on concurrency. So what it says is you're using a concurrent hash map, and you are using get and put operations on this. And there is a sufficient level of detail. These are the line numbers. Like in 110, for example, let's go to 110, and there is a get operation on this. And if you go to 137, there is a put operation. So there's a hash map and there's a get and there's a put operation after some time. And what can happen is, since this is in a multi-threaded environment, some other thread can access your concurrent hash map and update it. So you may actually use your operation may not be correct. So that's the problem, and the fix is, instead of using put, use put if absent. And these are the kind of things the developers may not be familiar with, and that's where CodeGuru Reviewer helps. Okay, so again, there are more comments. In the interest of time, what I'll do is I'll go back and talk about other aspects of Amazon CodeGuru. So we have actually validated CodeGuru Reviewer internally at Amazon. About 4,000 developers were using it, and CodeGuru Reviewer provided hundreds of recommendations. And there was, in addition to rating the comments as useful, not useful, developers also gave comments about how helpful it was. So I'm showing you like a small number of comments. So the first feedback from the developer was that the CodeGuru Reviewer allowed us catch a long-standing race condition. So this was, again, this issue was found in production code. So that basically means that this is what I told you. These issues often escape even human reviewers, right? So that's the first comment. And the second one is about the pagination. And here again, the comment here is this is a comment that was missed in the code review process, and CodeGuru Reviewer was able to catch it, and it's a great catch and a great recommendation. And the last one is about the use of resources, and the developer says Amazon CodeGuru Reviewer recommended that I use try with resources to close this resource, and I implemented it immediately. So these are some of the comments about the type of recommendations and how it helped developers at Amazon. So that's one part of Amazon CodeGuru, which is the CodeGuru Reviewer. And now I'm going to talk about CodeGuru Profiler. So if you look at an application, and if you look at the cycle, the first one is you write the code, you test it, you review it, and then you deploy the code. And typically, it's difficult to, there is very little visibility on what goes on in production, right? So that's where the CodeGuru Profiler comes. So it's about running applications. This is not about static code. So this is about running applications and the problems or the insights you can get about running applications and the recommendations you can get about running applications. Okay, so let's go back to our earlier, the scenario of Lynn having interaction with the on-call. So the problem with poor application performance is, the first one is it results in poor end user experience. So users are very sensitive to latencies, and if the application is not responding, then it results in poor end user experience, and actually it results in a loss of customers, right? So this is very important. So you want to first prevent these issues, and if you cannot prevent them, at least fix them or identify them as soon as they occur, right? So that's important. And the other one is the higher cost of compute infrastructure. So you may have certain fleet sizes. How do you know this is the right thing? And you cannot have a smaller fleet size and so on. Okay, so and this again directly translates to the cost of doing business. And again, there are certain systems which are mission critical systems like railways and air traffic control and so on, and stock trading systems where a very small impact or increase in latency can have impact in terms of millions of dollars or in terms of lives at risks and so on, right? So application performance is very important, and what happens is there is an increase, or there is a rise in the type of performance problems of applications, because as people move to cloud or distributed systems give you the ability to scale and deploy resources dynamically. At the same time, when you have certain problems, it also becomes difficult to debug, right? So, troubleshooting distributed application is often challenging. And the other one is performance optimization is a specialized area, and it's not a expertise for many of the developers. It again goes back to the kind of expertises we talked about, right? So this is one of those areas, and while the number of lines of code written and the number of software developers that is steadily increasing or exponentially increasing, performance optimization hasn't caught pace with this. So it's difficult to get help on these kind of issues, right? So let's assume, let's just think, if Lynn had someone who actually has performance engineering domain expertise, continuously learns performance best practices, and continuously analyzes the system performance in production, points directly to the performance problems, and provides actionable recommendations, and helps the team prioritize code fixes. Okay, so this is an ideal world. This is what we would like, and this is exactly where the CodeGuru profiler fits in, right? So I'll give you examples of how which highlight how it helps with these kind of issues. Okay, so at a high level, what CodeGuru profiler does is it helps you find methods with the high performance for high potential for performance optimization. As I mentioned earlier, any large running application has thousands of methods, and if you say, where do you get started, right? Let's say that you want to reduce the latency or reduce the cost, where do you get started, right? So, and this can be in terms of reducing the latency or increasing the throughput or increasing the utilization, right? And the second one is it also provides specific recommendations on how you can fix your code. And it's an intelligent profiler based on many years of performance engineering experience at Amazon. So that's it's backed by years of experience and a lot of running experience with running large scale systems and optimizing them. So that's something you get. It's a fully managed service, and you get this knowledge base, right? And the other important thing to note is it's built for production systems. Several times people run it pre-prod to get insights. So, and if something happens in production, you still, you don't know the data, there is no data, right? So with the CodeGuru profiler, you can actually run it in production because it has low overhead. And it continuously runs on production data. It continuously analyzes the performance. And there are several ways you can use CodeGuru profiler. The first one is to troubleshoot a bottleneck. So suppose you are seeing certain trends in production which you are not happy with. Since you have the data about normal running application and also application which is not performing well, you can analyze it and address the problem, or identify and address the problem. So this is more a reactive use, and the other one is a proactive use. Suppose you have developed a new feature, you can run it in pre-prod and analyze the behavior and look for opportunities for optimization. So that is the other proactively using for optimizing the performance. And the third one is performance test, like stress test and so on. You can use the profiler and see the behavior of your application. And finally, if you're a developer in the team, if you're curious about how your application runs and performs, you can profiler can give you rich insights about the behavior of the application. So there are many ways of using CodeGuru Profiler, and CodeGuru Profiler supports application written in Java. So if you have a Java application running on a large number of instances, you want to performance optimize that, you can use CodeGuru Profiler. So let me talk a bit about the onboarding, how you can, suppose you have a running applications, how you can leverage Amazon CodeGuru Profiler. The first one is you may have several applications running on your fleets. So you need to create what's called an application. This is a set of a single service or related services which you tie together and call it an application, call it a profiling group. So this is just a way to identify, what is the group of related applications or microservices you want to profile. So that's the first step. And the second step is to update the IAM role used by the profiler agent. So there's a profiler agent which collects the runtime stack trace, and so you need to provide access permission for the data created by this agent. So that is the second step. And the third step is set the Java application dependencies so that you can update your build script to leverage the profiler. And these scripts are, we provide those sample scripts. And the fourth one is actually starting in the profiling the thread with the profiler, so that it can start collecting the stack traces from your JVM, right? So so this is just a couple of lines of code in your main method. So if you're done these 4 steps, then your application is profiler ready, and the data is getting collected, and then we'll see what is the kind of recommendations you can get. Okay, so now let's say that you have done the onboarding to Amazon CodeGuru Profiler. So let's see what is it you can get. So for that, I'll take a very simple application. I'll show a live application with the actual results. But before that, this is more a cartoon picture of what's going on. So let's say that you have an image processing application which has 2 steps at a high level. Let's say it does darkening of the image and then brightening of the image. So your application has just 2 steps, right? And if you kind of go deep down and if you look at the application stack, the darken image has multiple steps, like reading a file, doing the darken operation, and writing the results. Part of the writing the results is actually doing the compression. So now you can say, okay, a single step can correspond to multiple operations, right? And the same thing happens to the brightening also. Okay, so this is, I think all of us can relate to this, right? So now if I ask the question, so which of these steps is more expensive? So we talked about finding the expensive lines of code, right? So if I ask you, which is more expensive, and let's say that you want to speed it up by, let's say, 10 or 20%, which one will you target first, right? So this is where the CodeGuru Profiler helps. It provides 2 things. One is visualizations, which you can use to understand how it is running in production. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is the top-down view. For example, so this has 2 steps, right? The darken image and the brighten image. It will tell you which is taking more time. And typically you will have like hundreds of or even thousands of steps. So it gives you a sense of which is taking more time, right? So that's the first top-down view. And the second view is what we call the hotspot graph. So if you look at these steps, they are consist of multiple operations, like reading a file is common. Of course, one does darken operation, the other one does brighten operation, and writing a file is common, right? So the thing is, one is at a top-down view, which of the steps is taking time, versus which of the operations is also taking time. So that's more from a bottom-up perspective, and we'll see how that happens. And when we talk about time, there are two types of time. One is the CPU time taken in computing versus the latency or the wall clock time, which is more the the user-facing thing. So you get both the views. So this is one aspect of the profiler, which is the visualization, and the other aspect of profiler is recommendations, where we highlight the issues, we provide the resolution steps and the location of where you should be fixing the issue, right? So as I said, this is a high-level view, and what I'm going to do now is go and show a demo of how the profiler works. So this is the console, and what you can do is you can go to the profiler and you can look at the profiling groups. So there are a bunch of profiling groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the image processing application I talked about. And so this is, let me see if I can increase the size of this so that you can, this is better. Okay, so this is the image processing application talked about. It has it has brighten image, it has what is this? Darken image, it has grayscale image and upright image. It has multiple operations, and what happens is, if you can see this at a high level from a visual perspective, it seems that the brighten operation is taking more time than the other operations, which may or may not be, which may be actually reasonable. Okay, I don't think we want to just jump into conclusion. Just because something takes more time doesn't mean it's doing something wrong. It may be genuinely taking more time. At least you get that kind of an input, and so that is the visualization of the high-level operations. And the other view is what I call the hotspots. And from that hotspot perspective, if you look at this, what it shows is the deflate bias is taking like 61% of the total CPU time. So, this deflate method is common to multiple steps, and that is the one which is contributing to the maximum use of the CPU, like 61% of the time. And the profiler also gives you the cost in dollars, like it's costing like $152 per year. So you have a good sense of which of the operations are important and what they are contributing to, right? And so there is one recommendation associated with this application. What this says is, so what is this recommendation is about? So what this says is, the cryptographic implementation you are using is inefficient. It says you are spending like 3.84% of the time on this, and typically you expect less than 1% time to be spent on this cryptographic operation. So that's that's the issue. And what is the resolution step here? The resolution step here is you evaluate switching to Amazon Corretto crypto provider library. So this is an efficient crypto library, and as a developer, you may or may not be familiar with these multiple implementations, right? So what you get is, this is the kind of recommendations you get, so this is almost like having an expert in your team who knows about multiple performance issues, right? So, and you can actually see where the issue was found in your source code. And for example, yeah, you can go here and it shows you the use of this operation, and so it gives you an ability to kind of drill down and see what's going on in your application. All right. So that's about that's one of the visualizations, one of the applications of an image processing application, how you can speed it up. And I'll show you another application. So this is basically an ordering application. So there is an online store, and customers are ordering fruits. And so this is the performance visualization of this. And what it says is there are 2 recommendations here. And let's look at the first recommendation. So what the first recommendation says is that you are spending about 28% of your time on parsing dates. And typically, applications spend less than 1% of the time doing this. So there is something wrong here, right? So this is a recommendation you get from the profiler, and it also tells you what is the reason, the resolution step. So what it says is when you are doing this simple date format, you should pass the date format symbols. So the schema for the date, it is something you have to pass when you are doing the constructor. Otherwise, what happens is it's going to be doing it repeatedly, which is going to slow down the performance. So this is how you invoke this date format symbols. So this is the resolution step. And if you look at the performance of the code before and after this, so this is the unoptimized application, and it is spending about 30% of the CPU, leading to about $372 per year doing this operation, right? And if you follow the recommendation given by CodeGuru profiler, so it is taking less than 10% of the time, and it is $119 per year. So that's the kind of, so we talked about giving actionable recommendations. So that's the recommendation the CodeGuru profiler gave, and if you make the recommendation and run the profiler on it, you actually see the cost benefits immediately, right? So let me go back to this because we are kind of running out of time. So, so how does this work? The CodeGuru profiler, basically what happens is this is your running application, and this is running on multiple hosts. As you saw in the onboarding steps, you deploy an agent in each of these instances, and that creates a profiler thread, and that collects the stack traces, and these stack traces are sent to the backend, and first they are aggregated, and then we apply models on this aggregated data, and out of this you get 2 things. The first one is the kind of recommendations we saw about the date and the cryptographic library, and the second one is the visualization. So so the actionable recommendations are more on the kind of problems people have already solved, and you can use the visualization and your own domain knowledge to look for issues which are specific to your running application. And even just with the reviewer, even profiler also we have tested internally with hundreds of developers on thousands of applications, and in one of the instances the developer says that CodeGuru profiler recommended on a thread contention, and which was using like about 60% of the CPU time, and after the fix a single host could serve like 7.5 times more traffic. So this is the kind of gains this developer saw in a live application, and in another instance the developer was using it in pre-prod, and the developer was doing some kind of a cloning operation, and CodeGuru profiler pointed it out, and after removing this clone, there was like a 40 to 67% in reduction of the fleet sizes. So this is the kind of gains people, developers in Amazon have seen with Amazon CodeGuru. So in summary, if you cannot wait to get started, you can go to this link and onboard on both the reviewer and profiler and start your journey in code quality and performance optimization. And once you do it, this is what you get. You improve the code quality and also the application performance. And with CodeGuru reviewer, and the other one is you can give feedback on the type of recommendations. Some of them may not work for you, and the CodeGuru reviewer improves with feedback. And if you look at the CodeGuru reviewer, what happens is it identifies code defects and it provides actionable code recommendations on fixes, and it also integrates easily with the pull request based workflow, which is very common. And if you look at the CodeGuru profiler, it provides actionable recommendation on performance issues, and it provides rich visualization to help troubleshoot issues which are specific to your running application. So thanks for your time.